Last time on Morrowind Ball Z, I tossed some loser into the volcano, and I got an affectionate hug by Azura beating Morrowind for the first time. No! Welcome back to this long-winded journey of Orpheolus beating Morrowind for the first time, except I have already beat the game, so what now? If there is any one thing the Elder Scrolls is known for, besides fans having a parasocial affection towards anyone named Todd, or having a fetish with the number 11, it is all the factions you can join and proceed to wreak havoc with. So, I figure I could go ahead and complete as many factions as I can in one video. It's not like this video is going to be seen by anyone if my last run was any indication to go by, but goddammit, I am having fun, so I'm going along with it. A couple notes before we get started. The first is that by looking through the main menu, I found out I could have the game default to using the best type of damage when attacking, making my life easier. I won't be doing that because I like doing things the hard way, and I enjoy having to think about how I attack and move my character. It elates the 5 neurons in my brain. The second is a small retcon from the last run. You know, my biggest complaint about the game is a lack of a good UI, and I don't know what quests I have going on. Turns out, there is a way to know what quests I have going on. It's a little thing in the bottom of the journal called Options, and you can click on your active quests. They could have worded it better than a word that correlates to modifying the game's resolution and audio and other technical aspects. Alright, after de-rusting myself on the controls, if I'm going to complete quest lines and become the leader of almost every faction, I am going to need one skill of my faction's preferred type to level 90, and my skills are sitting at a respectable so I'm going to need to do some training. There is a funny exploit where if you cast a spell drain skill 100 points 1 second, you can basically get free training. However, I am British, so I will need twice the drain skill to get over my resist magic of 50 points. Before sleeping away my troubles to begin the long grinding session that would take me over an hour, I am reminded about my best friend in the world, the Dark Brotherhood, and their exquisite items to sell, while also getting back into the swing of things. The next mechanical thing I will go over is something I figured out during my casual playthrough. The most optimal way to level is by focusing on your miscellaneous skills, since they don't count towards the level up progression. Level up a skill 10 times, and you will get 5 points of that skill's attribute, and I plan on taking this pretty far, focusing on the skills that will help me out in the future. Spear to get my point across, Alteration since free willpower, Conjuration for free intelligence, Long Blade for strength, Acrobatics because jumping around goes whee! Illusion for personality. Okay, that is kinda pointless, but for the Thieves and Moray quest lines, I will be making a funny spell, so I'll need illusion levels. I was also feeling a little under the weather, and I spent a long time looking around for an Imperial shrine. I was looking for the little tablets associated with the Tribunal Temple, only to figure out they are the tables the priests are at. Honestly, they don't look like altars, but who am I to judge? My office back in college was a laptop on a cheap card table as I slept on an inflatable mattress, helium not included. Now I am at a much higher level. The Dark Brotherhood thinks it is funny to send 2 assassins after me while I sleep. Unfortunately for them, that just means twice the loot. After a long while of posing being a weakling, my power levels are starting to eclipse the crap you find in the base game, and I figure I can get back to doing the Mage's questline, since I was like 3/4 of the way done. I was able to progress my standing up to Wizard, and I'll need a Wizard staff to progress. Not for casting spells, for hitting people on the head really hard. And like hell, I'll be spending 5,000 bucks on a staff, so brunt force trauma it is, and I will need to hunt Arnine. But from my failing eyes, I guess we are killing anime. The journey to the cave wasn't too bad. Sure, the northern islands are hilly as hell, but I mean, levitation kinda removes the difficulty traversal. The cavern was short and sweet, the skeletons got boned and not in a pleasant way, and I'm starting to suspect I might be a little too powerful now, or the enemies are not very bright. Don't worry about the brightness, I'll fix that soon. It wasn't long before the shonen protagonist realized she left her plot armor at home, and my wizard's beaten stick is procured. I also figured out how to pick locks. You need to equip the pick in your hand, then use it like a weapon. But being a mage solves everything, so it is a moot point. Also, I can at this point finish a questline and become the Arch-Mage. I do want to finish in the other questlines first. As fun as it is to wander around Vardenfell on foot, I think it is time to embrace the traditional travel Morrowind veterans love so much. I have a carry weight problem, and I plan on shouldering my burdens for the remainder of the run, which means I'll need to be a pack rat, so I can go back to my old ways, ascending the ideal master's feet picks, but with a feather enchantment. The funny thing about Morrowind is that movement and jump height is determined by your carry weight ratio. The less you weigh, the further and faster you jump. So now we are schmoving. Imagine the locals watching some schizophrenic maniac hopping around, cranked up on enough crack to make the city streets blush. But we can do better. The first part involves making a spell dedicated to jumping for a short duration, and the second part is breaking your fall with slow fall so you don't break your kneecaps after cosplaying as the Artemis. Cast a high level jump spell with a little bit of fortify speed, and watch as the world flies by your feet. And be sure to cast slow fall before you land, or else you'll be missing a few kneecaps. Suddenly, the birds of terror are now shitting themselves as they are no longer the alpha predator. Now with that intermission done, we can go back to completing the game that I hope is real. Funnily enough, the last quest I needed to complete for Edwina is frankly not that difficult, and I could have completed the entire quest line had I not be a pussy. There is a mine in Gnosis, and the workers are looking for miners. I didn't feel like getting more war crimes and other crimes against fictional humans placed against me, so I grabbed a pick and ran inside. Thankfully this place isn't too bad. Pet a scrib, used my shadow amulet to become mostly invisible, and failed to sneak past the guard. Unfortunately for him, I am on enough substances out of the trash can to just ignore him, and run right to the end of the mines to discover a brand new Dwemer ruin, Metha Maze, my type of home. However, the basement caved in, and the place is condemned, so I return back to Edwina to finish her arc, leaving just one more quest line to complete, and at this point, I can become the Arch-Mage, but I will save that for later. I then return to Balmora since I'm actually competent, and Azura has 2 new quests for me to complete. The first is grabbing the Staff of Magnus. You know, the artifact sealed deep within Labyrinthian. I am starting to question the consistency of these artifacts in Elder Scrolls lore. At least with my stupid fast travel spells, I can more or less skip out the walking part of Morrowind. With a hop, skip, and a jump, and some shattered legs, I can arrive at my Asu to have it fistilled. The dungeon is stupidly short, and before long I can grab my sacred artifacts, and return to get Azura's second quest. The dungeon in question is a little bit east of Vivec, just having to navigate some islands in the dark. As for the cavern, you're supposed to be using levitation potions to get to the end. Or, you know, be some unfathomable force in nature that laughs at the concept of gravity and catching the boss off guard. And I can wrap up another full quest line, leaving just the Wolverine Halls quest, which are probably the most boring. The first quest for the Argonian involves escorting some high elf across the town. What the hell is this quest design? It is so stupid. Though, looking back, I think she actually needed help escorting for her own safety. The next quest involves hunting down a copy of Vampires of Vardenfell, which just means visiting the local bookstore. Not the Barnes or the Nobles for exorbitant price books, but the local bookshop for the discounted used books. Supporting the local businesses, though, judging by the mysterious white substances on the page, and some of them are stuck together, I don't want to know what sort of smut they were reading. With that done, the skank wants me to arrange a meeting with one of the Ash tribes, overshooting the camp by a little bit. Thankfully, Stenema did not relocate to the very remote shrine, and her apprentice is attempting to calm a spirit in a nearby cavern. She is too scared to appease the ghost, and wants me to do the work for her. I do her job, and report back to the wise woman, telling her I deserve back pay. The meeting has been arranged. Next up comes assassinating a necromancer in some cave. I don't want to know what he does with those bones. The cave in question is near Sedanin, and for some reason, the taxi guy fell off his ramp and is just chilling on the ground below. I know money is tight, but you don't need to fall to your death. Think of all the OnlyFans content you can record on top of a silt strider. I looked at my map and turns out I had my map markers in the wrong spot and overshot my destination by a lot. I had the wrong archipelago marked down. I had in my directions north of a Daedric ruin, which I killed everything at a Daedric ruin, including some innocent bystander. I think I heard her whisper about starting some vigil dedicated to Sendar. Yeah, that works with my voices in my head. Once I had the correct coordinates, I flew to the south, but I ended up missing the mark yet again, landing in the ocean, but while I was here, I found a submerged Daedric ruin. Curious on this curiosity, I swam to the bottom and interacted with the shrine, and I started Boethiah's quest. Well, yes, I do look up at the USB for stuff, but I did not look at the location of the shrine. I found it by complete accident, like the kids of old used to. Inside the correct mine, I began extracting the unlife essence from the skeletons, and I should note at this point, I did equip Azura's ring for some Night Eye for the viewer experience. Though note to self future Orph, since I script out each part of the script after each recording session, please add on more Night Eye. At the end of the cavern, I find a very lonely necromancer wanting someone to pass the time with. I don't want anything to do with the Bone Walkers with their drained strength, but the quest is done. The penultimate quest for the skink is collecting a soul from an Ash Ghoul. I don't really know which enemy is an Ash Ghoul, so I just began killing indiscriminately. Eventually I find the Ash Ghoul, which are the noodle snoots, snag the soul for the ideal masters to play with, and for once, not for their foot fetishes. And the final quest of this arc involves traveling to a dwarven dungeon filled with vampires. Normally you would need to be careful around vampires since interacting with vampires, including looking through their inventories for some baffling reason, can give you the suckiest disease known to man. But lol, Nereverine kinda mitigates that prospect. I also figure out how to do stealth strikes, so that cheeses even more of the game. Eventually I plugged a vampire, which will be important for a much later questline, and I find my desired reading materials, including a Daedric shield, and I finished the Skink's quest, and now I can hand in Trenibus's resignation papers. But before I wrap up the questline for good, Trenibus has 2 quests for me to do. The first and most important quest, which is the whole reason to engage with the mage's storyline, involves going to various individuals to learn about the disappearance of the dwarves. I talked to the various NPCs, and while they do have their own conjectures on the dwarves, nothing quite beats going to the source material. And of course, that means talking to Yagrum on the histories. The neckbeard might not be well versed in how to converse with Milady, but he knows a bit of Kagranak, the ultimate case of f around and find out. I handed my research to the Arch-Mage, and yeah, Trenibus is a f***ing moron and tries to steal my research for his own. I don't take this kindly and hand Trenibus his pink slip, making me the new Arch-Mage. But I'm not done just yet. To add insult to injury, I tell Trenibus he makes Ulfric's Stormcloak look like Shalador, and he didn't take it too kindly. With my bloodlust satiated, that is the first of, checking notes, 10 faction questlines done. Uh-oh. The next questline I wanted to get started on would be the Temple quest, which have a conflict with some Daedra quests. I for one am a staunch enjoyer of Sheogorath's philosophical flights. I figure I should probably get them knocked out. Since I already have Boethiah's quest started, I should probably get that wrapped up. All I need to do is give Duma Grolag a book on Boethiah, and he will make a new statue dedicated to Boethiah. He was super easy to find since he is just up the stairs a creeper. Once I got my book purchased from the #1 seller of Forbidden Smut that would make the wife of a priest blush, I handed in the materials, and I had to wait an average Orph cycle of releasing videos that managed to sneak in a subscribe reference somewhere in the first 10 minutes of the video. I traveled to Karstag's Don't Fall Off Rock, and I am given Goldbrand, a powerful sword with a good fire enchantment in the land of Dumber resistant to fire. A pretty simple quest. You know, I was pretty worried the quest would be a lot more difficult and obtuse, like they would have to have me interact with a mage as a vampire, travel to some inn in Alderaan to kill a mage for his enchanted ring, and return to Sirloin with exactly 11,171 gold in my inventory just to tell North Carolina to go to hell. That is plain silly. You should be telling Nebraska to go to hell. Iowa is the real capital of corn. Those Huskers are just jealous of Iowa's superiority. My next quest is one of the 2 Daedra quests I actually want to do because the rewards are beyond juicy. In the far southeastern portion of the map lies Azura's Shrine, which is a hop, skip, and a jump away. Inside the shrine, Azura tells me of the bitter rivalry between Morrowind and Oblivion fanboys, and wants me to rid the shivering isles of Stadia. Well, I am more of a dark seducer person anyways. The cruddy part of this quest, and really a lot of the Daedra quests, is that they often take me to either the most northern islands of the Sheograd region, or in the southern portion of the map, so I'll need to do a lot of jumping around. Eventually the island is cleared, and I made sure not to introduce the hermit to the concept of touching grass, and I am given Azura's Star, which for some special interactions later on, is an extremely important artifact. Never-ending Grand Soul Gem, that is the only item in the game that can house the soul of a god. I will take it. Next up in alphabetical order is Malakath, once again in the northern portion of the map. The Mages Guild really needs to open up a branch in the Ursulaku camp. I spent a while here looking around, even accidentally entering the wrong cave at one point, which will be important later on, but eventually I could converse with Daddy Malakath, who wants me to end the Orion bloodline. Well, sure, I could ask around the largest city in the game for Orion's location, or I could travel to Narmak and confront Farian the old-fashioned way. The battle was a little difficult. Mostly his bodyguards hit hard, and I don't have the best defenses. Farvin is a little bitch and a fake, so he was the easiest to go down. Eventually the bloodline could be ended until the next title where his cousin is an important NPC, and Malakath rewards me for my psychopathic tendencies with the Helm of Orion Bearclaw, a heavy helmet with a constant fortify agility and endurance buffs, which is actually pretty good. Too bad I'm a light armor build, so to the museum it goes. Continuing on my pilgrimage of the Houses of Trouble and Troubling Thoughts, my next quest takes me to the Shrine of Mehrunes Dagon, Not Mephala, that will be much later on. Mehrunes Dagothar wishes me to prove my worth by traveling to some faraway tomb, raiding it of everything of loot, including all the Daedra inhabiting the tomb, and eventually picking up a rusty dagger. I return to Dagon, and instead of being vored by a dragon, he gives me his dagger. Not a fun dagger like in the later entries that has an instant kill effect, this just poisons the enemy. No wonder they reworked the dagger in later entries. My next quest is from the other super evil Daedra stuff I can't see on YouTube with. He wants me to deal with one of his lazy minions. I resonate with the lazy minion. I am too lazy to figure out the labyrinthian structure of the game, and rather I play the game like a walkthrough heavy game of the 90s using a printed guide I typed up and sent to the computer. Being slothful is quite enjoyable. It took more jumps than I would have liked, but eventually I found the dungeon after a lot of stumbling around, and I could stick it to the man. With the quest complete, I return to Moleg's balls, and his truncheon of submission is now mine. A pretty okay maze with an absorbed strength and magicka, and you can easily overencumber an enemy in a few swings. And the final Daedra quest, at least at this point, is Sheogorath's quest, which is also the best quest. Instead of being in some Daedric shrine in bum nowhere, Sheogorath is at least nice enough to be hanging out in Vivec just to taunt the demigod. Within the sewers of St. Dellen's Canton is a shrine dedicated to him and his minions. I avoided everything in the room and let Sheo whisper sweet nothings to my ear. It feels very wrong to have Sheogorath not be Scottish. It is only natural that the best Daedric prince gives the best Daedric quest, just in the absolute worst location. If you said in the northern portions of the Sheograd region, you would be correct, but not just the northern portion, the most northern location. A very Sheogorath thing. I arrive at the Dick Choke, and I grab the Fork of Horripulation, which is required to kill the giant Netch. The fork is the worst weapon in the game, or really down there, and I do have the difficulty turned down so the fork doesn't break. While this might seem like a quest done for the joke, what people don't realize is that there is a philosophy behind this. This isn't about using a terrible weapons for the memes. It actually represents the Sisyphean struggles of the proletariat against the elite. The fork represents the distinct power difference between the commoners and the aristocracy. It is a death by 1,000 cuts, since one individual cannot stand on their own, but requires a united front to stand up to the giants. It doubles as a meta-commentary towards those who are stupid enough to attempt to beat video games with inferior weapons to prove their superiority. Once again, Sheogorath proves to be the most enlightened Daedric prince, and no wonder he has a DLC dedicated just to him. Once the bull has been suplexed by its horns, I return to my future self, and he turns my small fork into a giant fork, the Spear of Bitter Mercy, which is the best spear in the base game. I am a spear build, and he knows exactly what I must do with it. Stick it to his followers to put them out of their misery, so they may travel to the Shivering Isles. I should have known that Sheogorath had a trick up his sleeve, and my game crashed, and when I tried to reload the game, gave a broken save error. F***ing Bonewalkers. I made sure the minions are double dead, and save in a different cell to avoid this bug. I will choke this up to a fourth wall break. At this point, I am ready to start doing some faction quests, and the second faction questline I wish to partake in is the Imperial Cult. I thought the Imperial Cult and the Imperial Legion were the same questline, but nope, they are separate. Oh well, I traveled to Ebonheart with a pretty nice depiction of a Skyrim dragon burrowing its head into the ground thanks to crappy Skyrim AI. Eventually I found my way to the Imperial Shrine, and sure, I would love to go from door to door unsolicited to try to get more people to join. There are 4 quest branches to dive down. Conveniently, all 4 of them are in the same building, and the first questline I wish to do is Sinolian's quests, which involve going to certain locations and gathering materials for potions. Or, you know, I could skip the middleman and go to vendors and buy my materials there. A small oversight, but considering I just completed a quarter of the questline in a few minutes, sometimes doing things the lazy UESP up on a laptop sort of way is the best way. During my travels, I also picked up a Divine Intervention spell, rounding out my repertoire of fast travel methods with the Divine Scroll of Tarheel, saved only for the most dire of emergencies. I hand in my quest to the Impertinent Monk, and that is the first quest line done. The next branch is my sort of questing, going around to various individuals asking for alms for the poor. What you're supposed to do is buff your personality and other happy horse or, you know, being the hero that saved the Spanish Inquisition. I would have loved to go kill a rabbit on these individuals for gold, but nah, gotta be nice and take it from the needy. Gotta keep my deep pockets lined. The second quest involves gathering some gold from a rich Argonian, but I find it rather suspicious there's a door behind the leader of the Argonians that leads to a pool of slaughterfish. I am starting to suspect he is up to something. and in the back, I find a runaway slave hiding in a cell. I inform Amakilla he needs to check his basement more than once in Era, and I get his collection. The third quest is a rather simple one: harass the people of Arderon to direct their money from the Tribunal to the cult of suspicious individuals, considering they labeled the institution that is closely aligned with the real-world church a cult. I am starting to suspect something is going on. I am but a lay servant, so I won't question my superiors. Just go around to various shops, harassing them for money to feed my addiction to moon sugar adjacent products, and hand in the quest for more easy reputation. I am a hero of the people. I put an end to Dagoth-Ur, I gathered powerful artifacts, and now you want me to gather some fine clothing for Harvest End, which is held on the 27th of last seed. Fine. Funny thing about the Elder Scrolls, as I just walk into a clothing store, the events of Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim all start on last seed, with the assassination of Uriel Septim in Oblivion occurring on Harvest End. What a way to end the harvest season by consuming a meal fit for an emperor. Next up comes gathering some brandy for a fundraising dinner. I am starting to suspect Ilias might be an alcoholic. The quest involves going to the various pubs in Balmora and procuring some brandy. I tried being civil about my alcoholism, until the council club kicks me out for drinking more than my recommended dosage of Everclear. Fine. You too. I will crawl into your brandy cellar and drink myself so silly, I don't know what era I am in. But regardless, it is the era of running you out of business and not paying my tab. I handed my pub crawl to Tupter, and now comes the second to last mission, getting some gold from the owner of a mine. I attempted to talk to the lovely owner of the mines, and the Scourge tells me to bugger off. 500 septims is too much for the miser. Obviously, something is up. I talk to a steward, and he informs me he sees his master slink off in the middle of the night to the mines for something rather nefarious. I had to travel to the mines to confirm for myself, and this little community is rather cozy, even if there happens to be a mine full of slaves. I walk to one of the workers, and he confirms my deepest suspicions. He has a raw ebony addiction. I return to the manor to blackmail him, and he gives me 3 ebony ores to eat for myself. Let's just sweep this under the rug, and head to the back room to suckle on this illicit good. I return to the cathedral, and with my 500 pounds of ebony coke, I handed in 500 septims, and now I can begin the final quest at Trupter, which is pressing the local colonization project for some money. Seems the Trillion Septim Company is falling on hard times, and someone stole all the money, so it is one giant goose chase across a couple towns chasing after a pimp. Eventually I broke into a house right before anything funny could happen, and I could get most of my money for the quest. I must have picked the wrong dialogue option, but oh well. Moss Nob is horrible with his financial capabilities, and ended up spending 500 septims running around for his pleasures. I handed in the embezzled funds, and with that, Trupter's quests are now done. Now comes the fun quest, and my next quest giver is none other than Kanye West himself. Before there was a Kanye West, he was actually Kanye East. The first half of the quest is focused on charity, helping the sick and the poor. That is just the guise of the church. The real reason the church is in Vardenfell is to procure holy artifacts to keep for themselves. Getting too close to being on the nose of the hobby lobbyists now. The first quest is simple: break into some guy's house and steal a bowl. We are a little early for the Thieves Guild part of the quest line, but that is just the joys of being morally ambiguous. Nobody acknowledges Sendar just yet, so I can't go on casual murder sprees. Next up comes ending a haunting of some poor guy's house. Turns out he accidentally built on top of a burial mound and is being haunted in his sleep. I break into the tomb and exorcise the specters, and let the Bosmer know he needs to check his basement for any spiders and flood damage and undead every so often. Continuing the theme of random busywork, we are now role-playing during the medieval era where anything suspicious is a witch and must be burned at the stake. Ability to levitate? Witch. Talking to yourself? Witch. Ability to read and write? Well, you just created some kindling for your burning. Mr. East told me good job. Now comes to reclaiming some divine artifacts part of the cult. The first of the legendary artifacts is located on top of Mount Cand, on one of the tallest summits on Vardenfell that isn't Red Mountain. Located at the summit after a bit of searching lies the corpse of Linus, with a special belt and staff. Nice and simple, and Kanye gives me his final task, calming the spirit of Juliel. Before taking on this final mission, I do an actually smart thing. All this time when I head out to do a quest, I set a mark in the church, and I would have to temple intervention to Vivek, jump over the entire city and often miss my shot, travel up to the Mages Guild to travel to where I need to go. Now I can warp right to the Mages Guild, and if I need to go to the church, I can just divine intervention. I am not very smart, okay? Just takes me a minute of setting my hand on the hot stove to know what pain is. I talk to the widow, and in the nearby cave lies a bandit den. Finally! Wanton violence! My favorite. With the cavern cleared of any denizens, I let Okur know that she won't have to worry about some pervert staring at her as she sleeps, and Kaye's quests are done, and now I can proceed to the final quest line. Lalatia's quests all involve finding some divine artifact and keeping it for yourself. Illicit and lucrative. I like it. The first of the artifacts is a ring in darkness. With my video compression without Night Eye, every cavern is dark as hell, so that narrows things down barely. I just navigated through a cavern I marked on the map earlier and made sure to dominate every smuggler here, and I find the Ring of the Breaking Wind, along with the legendary Jean Morrowind himself. I gave him a divine intervention scroll, and he warped away, giving me some Zenithar-themed items. And when I returned to Lalatia, she informs me that was probably an aspect of Zenithar himself. Glad to know the Daedra walk among men and myrrh. Here, Sindar. I promise I won't stab you repeatedly. Her next quest involves finding the boots of the Apostle, which I already found and I'm currently wearing. But there is something else in the ruins I want to show off. Since the ruin is already cleared for the most part, it was a straight shot to the final chamber. There is a little secret in this room. I have no idea how anyone found this out, but in the ceiling there is a random NPC just hanging out, and after she warps away, she gives me Mara stuff. Glad to see the gods are still looking out for the psychopath. 2 down, 3 to go, and the next artifact is the Ice Blade of the Monarch, which lies in a ruin just south of Dagon fell off a cliff and went splat. This ruin is filled with slavers that run a fighting ring with a bunch of Daedra. Not even giving them sylvan weaponry. Man, these guys are just plain dicks. I deleted the wizard from the game world, and I embraced my inner Abe Lincoln and freed the slaves. With the artifact in hand, I returned to Lalatia, and now comes Ashel Mimikala. Okay, I'm starting to think Bethesda just made these obnoxiously long names to win at Scrabble. I am at least grateful I did my prep work with creating my super jump spells. It is coming in clutch right about now. The Dagon itself is pretty straightforward. Just walk around Daddy Dagoth, kill a random mage, and look for a scroll dedicated to fiercely roasting my voice like casuals finding my channel for the first time, not understanding what a lisp or speech impediment is, and it took me a solid 5 minutes of searching around this blasted ruin, only to find out I was going the wrong way in the back. I levitated up the wrong way. Eventually the scroll is found, and now comes the final part of the quest line, grabbing the Skull Crusher. Now we are talking. My favorite way of disposing the vigilance. Getting into the dungeon will prove difficult, simply because the entrance is sealed. But like every plot convenient questline, the answer is just nearby. The tomb is suspiciously filled with remora, not what you would expect from someone's dead grandpappy's tomb. The tomb opens up into a giant cavern, and I will say this place is pretty sweet. Not super long, and I spent most of the dungeon dive just trying to find a blasted key, and no, I refuse to use the tech key. I forgot the tech key is a thing, and probably why it was scrapped in future titles. Eventually I arrived at the forge, and in a floating vendor chest the devs forgot to stick under the map, leading to yet another Dawnstar situation, I find the Skull Crusher. Too bad I didn't invest in a blunt build, otherwise some brains are about to become a nice hamburger. I hand in the final quest, the foe grinder enters the meat grinder, and with that, I am done with the quest line. Except I am still not master rank. I got lazy in my leveling. After a quick power leveling session, I meet the criterion to become the new leader of the Imperial Cult, and with that, I have obtained nigh unlimited power. But it is about time we see the other side of the religious coin. The Tribunal Temple is probably the most annoying faction to complete because their quests are very particular in how you clear them, all to honor Vivek. Vivek honors me by having me phase through the wall and into the ocean. Aren't we off to a great start? There are only 2 people who will let you join the faction, the High Fane or the Archcanon. Funny thing, if you're doing the Hortator portion of the main story, you cannot do the Tribunal faction because the Ordinators will hate your guts. Well, it's not like the Ordinators hate your guts perpetually, but the fact remains. After joining the faction, the first step is traveling the land in the form of a pilgrimage, revering the many trials Vivek had to endure before he stabbed my previous incarnation in the back. Still not bitter about that. At least you can do this quest in any order. The first step is traveling to the fields of Kimu and delivering some radioactive muck to the plants. The following steps are all located in Vivek City, so that makes things pretty simple. I donate a potion of levitation to a shrine, and now I can fly for a while, and I can also drop off some money for another long-winded boost. The most difficult one lies in Vivek's personal toilet. The riddle involves you breathing in a god's holy bathwater, not Amalexia's, as much as a phantom would love that, but rather Vivek's Taco Bell experience. After attempting to swim with the fishies, I am healed, and I offer Dremora a silver claymore I found in the chest next to him. And now I am courteous. Still bitter at Vivek for his obsession with unhealthy foods. The next few are located in the Nissus area. One pillar requires me to donate a cure disease potion to a pillar. Not sure why it needs a potion, but judging by all the coughing sound effects in the game, I think the blights are still causing a problem for everyone. Cold Cave is the next stop, something about drowning Rudy Man in a sea of tears. I probably spent 20 minutes searching this giant pool of water for the f***ing shrine. I got the water breathing from a previous shrine, so that helps out a lot. But it is still frustrating. I searched on and on, only to find out it was at the very start of the dungeon. I'm not very observant, okay? I once lost a critical piece of equipment at work for a solid month, fearing it was stolen, only to find out it was in a very obvious place. I need glasses. The final stop in this pilgrimage is located within the Ghost Gate. Probably best to tackle this in the post-game, where I'm not nearly as besieged by every Dagoth Ursimp. I found a soul gem, and my pilgrimage is complete. With that faux pas done and dusted, now I can finally do work for the other holy faction. Hopefully they can ignore my history of war crimes. The first quest for nearly every branch of the Tribunal faction is going to some random location far away from everything and giving someone a potion to be cured. Of course, I ended up getting East and West mixed up yet again, and I ended up going to the completely wrong dungeon at first. Oopsies. Eventually, I arrive at the correct shrine, and I cured his blight. Tolls wasn't too happy that I used a potion instead of a spell, but I mean, you could always mix ash salts and scrib jelly and get the same result. His next mission is investigating someone who is masquerading as a Nereverine. You know, there is nothing more cathartic as someone pretending to be a fake and having the real deal show up and tell you you are a fraud. I dread the day one of the larger challenge runners finds my channel and leaves a comment that somehow gets more likes than the actual video. I tell the fraud he is a fraud, and I have already cycled from Daddy Dagoth's ball. What the f am I writing anymore? I think waking up at 2:30 in the morning is getting to me. I present the moon and star, and Elvis shuts up. As a job well done, Tolls rewards me with another pilgrimage, this time to Margon, to reenact an important event in Vivek's lore. He taunted Dagon to hurl a rock at himself, which we must reenact. I taunted a nearby Dremora until he has a heated gamer moment. That Dremora is just a total asshole, so I just left him behind. And I could return to complete the quest. I am done with Tolls for the time being, and next he instructs me to hang out in Vivek for a while. While resting to heal my wounds, the Dark Brotherhood is starting to get on my nerves. They are now using Jinx Blades to paralyze me. Now things are starting to get a little personal, and soon I might need to fill my wardrobe with Dark Brotherhood suits. Might need to pay the Falkreath Sanctuary a visit. Endrin's first task for me is to kick someone with a disease out of the city. I traveled to the arena and politely asked her to quarantine herself. Thank goodness this wasn't 2020 when that show started. You have no idea how many assholes around me where I live had a convenient allergy to cloth masks. Also, fun fact about this quest, if you kill her and loot her corpse, you will get Corpus. And if you get Corpus this way, Diva Eth Fur will not be able to cure you, thus breaking the main quest. Note to self, evict people that look at you funny. Oh, I can't wait to become a landlord. The next quest is probably my favorite quest I have done in the game thus far. You need to make a silent pilgrimage to a shrine on the complete other side of the island. But the gimmick is that you are not allowed to talk to anyone. This includes NPCs, boats, guild guides, and the annoying in-law that keeps on pestering you for money so they can go gambling to feed their addiction and not paying child support, along with anyone else. So you cannot fast travel, and to do this quest to the best of your abilities, you will need to use your warp spells effectively to skip the travels. Frankly, my favorite type of quests or challenges are the ones where you are limited in an essential game mechanic. As a devout challenge runner that enjoys feeding their sadomasochistic tendencies, I think I fit this criterion perfectly. Eventually I made it to the most northern part of the island, and now I am free to speak what is on my mind. Considering the Daddy Dagoth quote, I probably should not. The next quest involves traveling to some nearby ruins to pick up some shoes. I didn't pay attention as to why, but I assume the lore is that some scalper did not pick up on the trend of transitioning from limited release sneakers to Pokemon cards and took the pair of shoes he couldn't sell to his grave. The crappy pair of shoes could not even last a day at my job. I am told good obedient customer, and Endurin's final quest involves wiping out a Daedric cult from the city. Since I have already betrayed the trust of Sheogorath, I could hand in the quest already, and now I am on to the next quest line, which is in Ghostgate. Uwa's quest starts largely the same as the previous ones, find some random sick person, and give them a potion. Literally outside the door of Ghostgate. I am starting to think Uvo was sent here so the Tribunal could give her the shittiest jobs until either she quits or natural selection takes root. Her next quest lies in the region of Dagon Fell. There are a lot of quests that lie in this region of the map, and I am starting to notice there really should be a temple or branch or at least anything to expedite the travels. This becomes all the more evident since I needed to deliver food to a hermit. I hand over my DoorDash delivery that is free of human flesh for once, and Uvo's next quest involves finding some hair shirt, which I already have found at some point. No idea when, but it is already in my inventory. My following mission involves getting a meat cleaver of St. Felms. Doesn't sound too hard. Where could this be? Kagranak's library in the most asinine location on Red Mountain. Okay. The journey was full of leaps and bounds, and the dungeon was filled with more dreamers, and really wished I visited this location during my finale, given its important lore implications. This dungeon is also required to visit should you take the kill of Vivek route of the main story. I find the meat cleaver on a cannibal, and this was before I could dine and dash, so I left my rimworld tendencies behind and make it to the depths of the library to find the corpse of an ash vampire. Yeah, with Daddy Dagoth dead, all the Sims are also dead. At least I am free to read as much reading materials as I please. By read, I mean skim the pages online. I don't really have the time. Well, at least that dungeon dive wasn't too bad. Uvo has one final quest. What could be worse than going to a side branch of the final dungeon? Oh, going to the actual final dungeon midway through. Fine. At least most of the dungeon was already cleared out, and inside the observatory, I could find the Corsair of some smut reading Pious Saint, and then I handed in the quest and wrapping up the third branch of the temple. Since I am at a much higher rank than Temple, I can now complete Toll's final quest, wiping out a Dark Cult in Hazor. Not a difficult challenge, just disappointing that the Dark Cult isn't partaking in anything fun. Just human sacrifice. Frankly, they aren't hardcore enough. With my task for Tolls done, my next temple to be a lay gopher to is in Molag Mar, aka the worst location in the game. The first quest is like all the others, find some random person, give them a care package and a get well soon card that had a pretty picture on it, and perhaps a pamphlet to the nearby funeral home, and be told good, Enwa. My next pilgrimage is to Mount Cand. This isn't a location. It is a command, which I am mixed on. I don't know if Cand is supposed to be a person, or a stuttered wanking joke. I travel to the cavern, and I am presented with a bunch of riddles. The first riddle is figuring out what element the Flame Atronach is asking for. The answer is lead, because that is what all my toys are made of. The second riddle is figuring out the contradiction. If I lie, he will slay me with a sword. If I tell the truth, I die by spell. The answer is a sword. Frost Atronachs don't have swords. The final riddle is wondering who killed the Atronach, the Altmer, the Dunmer, the Orc, or the Khajiit. The answer is the Orc, because the Dunmers are racist and believe Malakath is in the House of Troubles. With my quest complete, I can now partake in a witch hunt, something every religious institution can get behind. The dungeon in question is nearby in one of the numerous islands in the southeast, and it wasn't a long dive. Walk in, places skeletons wouldn't want it shoved into, and the necromancer can end her boning game. And the final quest that they are making me do is to kill a vampire in a dwarven ruin, which I have already done much earlier in the video. You know, time truly flies when you're having fun committing war crimes, except I can't for now. Oh well, with all the branches done, now I can do the final questline for the Archcannon. And no, I am not talking about blasting his ass to the nearby floating moon out of a cannon. His quests compared to everything I have done thus far are probably the simplest. Just travel to some shrines in very remote locations. Malakath just requires 4 Daedric hearts to replace his failing heart after watching the orcs be the punching bag of the Elder Scrolls lore for far too many eras. Mehrunes Dagon is located in a shrine I was already at, picking up some neat sneakers, so it was a hop, skip, and thank Vivek I have 100 acrobatics so I don't paint the door red, and Dagon can be satiated for about 6 or so years, though I am suspecting that since Dagon didn't get an offering, he will probably not be nice about returning to Tamriel. Just a hunch. The third corner is another simple quest. Go to a random temple, clear out the interior of its living problem, and touch Molag's balls. The fourth corner is probably the most problematic. Sheogorath. Thank goodness I am best friends with Sheo, so it is a simple quest. In order to talk to the Mad God, I just need to offer the unique bracers of Gamblopudi. Such an S-tier name. Except of course, it is in the furthest spot of the map. So here I come, splatters against the surface. In order to get Gamblopudi, I just need to help an orc embrace their persona. Instead of doing the same thing and be indoctrined by the Sonic or Pokemon or other common rabbit holes to the comic relief side of the internet, that wishes to do away with human ears and embrace the more animalistic kind. That leads to a series of denial even if your profile pic is a furry in a sense, even though it is just a crude artwork of a Pepito from the Xenoblade series. The Khajiit orc just wishes to snort a line of moon sugar. Okay then. I offer him some sugar right next to him, and beneath his sleeping pillow lies the funny bracelet, which I give to Sheograth for the time being. Or untime. Or time to finally beat a game with a fork, for it is calling. The final quest of the Tribunal Temple is traveling to Mountain Ass, or that was what the 99 lovers of Boethia did, who eventually gave birth to Almalexia. Morrowind lore is both interesting and very f***ed up when you think about it. And with that, I have obtained the Ebony Mail. But I am not done in the region just yet. Since this video has been more or less dedicated to getting Daedric artifacts, I should probably get another important Daedric artifact. On a mountain above Turan lies an orc who found Umbra. You know, the most dangerous sword in the Elder Scrolls lore. Sure, let's fight one of the base game super bosses. Yeah, Umbra hits hard, but once again, the fatal weakness of a melee combatant is the act of walking backwards with a long pointy stick. Before long, Umbra has been felled, and I can claim the Forbidden Sword. I return to Vivec, and now I am named Archcanon, canonically. I really like the Tribunal questline. Got to learn about the messed up lore of Morrowind and how far the people worships the Tribunal. Too bad I will eventually kill them all. Okay, Umbra, I will leave you right here next to the floating rock of doom and destruction. Be sure not to get any bright ideas like crashing this moon into the city, causing Morrowind to be doomed to destruction, or building a floating island to absorb souls. Okay? Okay. I was just about to wrap up recording the video, only to remember there is another side to the Imperial faction. I thought it was just the Imperial Cult, but nope. There's also the Imperial Legion. You know, the ones you can join in Skyrim to shut Ulfric up. To join the Legion, just head to the basement of the Nissa's Trade House for some reason, and talk to Darius to join. And we are given our first task along with some Imperial armor. If you talk to a guard outside of your armor though.
So you're the new replacement? You are out of uniform, soldier! Where is your power armor?
The first quest of the faction is arguably one of the best quests in the game, almost an Oblivion style quest. We just embrace the American ingenuity of kicking people off their homelands to take the resources they were squatting on. The widow won't sell her land to eminent domain until her husband's ghost in the egg mine has been satiated. Since I have been through here what felt like a long time ago, but just 45 minutes ago or so video time, it was a nice walk past the miners, the grumpy guard who immediately comes after me, and into the pool of water where I find the ghost of Manselmat, who was murdered by Lugrub. I grab the axe and hand it to Darius, who gives me an order I oh so love to exercise. With the job done, and the creator of the quest being promoted to the main quest designer in the next Elder Scrolls title, and the grab for the Widow's Land has been rescinded, Darius' next mission, I feel I keep on saying next a lot, but when you're steamrolling quests one after another, it starts to blend together, is to go back into the mines and heal the Queen of her blight. The request is simple enough, except for the Queen's harem wanting after my plump ass. Well, if someone ever wanted to become omnisexual, at some point, they will need to make passionate love to a blender that is turned on. Simple enough. Next quest comes a rescue mission, the first of many rescue missions for the Legion. Maruda was captured by some Ashlanders for some reason, and hopefully the Ashlanders will listen to my raisins, shoved right down their throats. Overall a simple quest, and Darius thinks my rationale for indiscriminate slaughter is enough to rescue the IRS. Turns out that Telvanni does not believe in simple matters like using animal specimens instead of humans for experimentation, or paying their taxes, and locked the orc away. The dungeon is filled with a lot of traps and undead, nothing too strenuous, and I have been training my lockpicking for the Thieves Guild later on. I just let Balladus know there is no force more intimidating than a taxman collecting his taxes, unless you are a billionaire and can use enough exploits in the tax code to not pay anything, and Ragash is let go. And now I am on to Darius' final mission, investigating a cult in town. I think being out here in the boonies is starting to get to the Imperials, and they are starting a cult dedicated to Talos and is threatening to assassinate the Emperor. I investigate the Longhouse, and I am allowed into the cult. Too bad these two cultists are unaware their actions basically foresaw the next two Elder Scrolls game. Some lunatic cultists assassinating the Emperor, and half of the neighboring province going to war against the Empire over Talos. I am starting to suspect that Thalmor might have been onto something all along. Darius gives me the order to join the High Elves in giving Talos worshippers a spanking of a lifetime, and going after 3 cultists. Helpful word of advice. Kill the guy in the basement first, so you won't have the entire barracks coming after your ass. Wait, who is the 3rd cultist? Heinzker? Why? I don't know. I just wanted to off the guy, okay? With the quest completed, my time ingesting red gnosis is done. Actually, judging by my average viewer base, they have no idea what game series I'm referencing. Oh well, I figure for my questline, I could just work on each fort on my way south. My next commanding officer is Sin the Dreamer, so either she dreams rather lewdly, or fantasizes about reducing manpower at her forts the brute force sort of way. Regardless, she has my loyalty. Her first mission is to grab some dwarven artifacts from a pothead's house. Yeah, the entire house is trashed beyond comprehension, with pots and bongs and bowls of unknown substances strewn about, but eventually I find the illegal pipe amongst the pottery, and next up comes a rescue mission. Ashurna Bibi was not too far of a journey. Well, everything is quick when you can jump halfway across a province in a couple jumps. After clearing out the exterior of its living resident problem, the cavern was not too interesting. Run through, get my dinner fork stuck on food I can't eat whole, and let John Cena out of his cage. Simple enough, and before handing in the quest, and I do take the time to invest more into security. Sure, I could open a door with a spell and be done with it. I want to be treated to the authentic thief lifestyle. I want more intelligence for my next level up, okay? Once I was done, your sin gives me a simple final task. Travel yet again to a location in the furthest reaches of Morrowind. Just travel through a cavern, ignore the bodyguard, and grab some gloves off of Verona. There is supposed to be some deep-seated blackmail between interlopers and the Telvanni, but honestly, I don't care too much. I just want the good Pepito points, just without any bloodshed.
What say you?
What say me? Personal space, mate. The Dreamer's quests are done, and next up comes Moonmoth, probably the longest part of the quest line, and nothing too interesting. The first quest is grabbing some scrap metal I found in a container. Just don't be like me and try to eat it. My doctor has been trying to tell me to eat more iron from my blackouts at work, but I don't think this is what he meant. The next quest is visiting an Ashlander camp. Some missionary tried forcing his religion onto someone else and ended up kidnapped. And it is up to me to save the day by going spot against a rock. This is the fate of the Legion. We are so f***ed. The missionary was taken to a nearby camp, and when I tried resting, I was gangbanged by some assassins, and the Jinx Blade ended up paralyzing me and I died. I was honestly too lazy to use any healing potions to cure my paralysis, but I am still ahead of my assassin death ratio, though I should probably get my paralysis weakness sorted out. Eventually I followed the series of torn pages to some outcast camp, and rather than deal things the classic Orph way, I figured I could do the more immoral thing, and take some random guy from a nearby Ashlander camp for the witch to do something with. I am not going to ask what is going to happen, I'm just going to let it happen and plug my ears when the screaming starts. On my way back, I did run across a runaway slave, and I figured, why not? I could escort him across the entire province to the railroad. No, not that railroad. I found my way back to the camp, rescued Josian to continue imperialism, and the quest is done. Since I am a nice person and I have no idea when Abe Lincoln will visit Vardenfell, I figure I could help the Argonian. Just there is nothing nearby, and I'll have to walk a stupidly long way to Saran. Wasn't so bad, except the AI is about as intelligent as a grouse. No idea if you have ever seen them in real life before. They make Trenibus look like Kagernak. One long hike later, the Argonian is saved to hopefully not lead a rebellion against Morrowind leading to the destruction of the province, and I am back to the questline. More rescuing. Yay. Instead of imperialism, I just wandered into a cavern, gave the bandits some much needed lobotomies straight through the cranium, and another easy quest. Nagmar was such a tedious location to get to. So tedious, the Ash Strider guide tried jumping off his pedestal and ended up surviving. And I need to go back to town to kill a breeding pair of Netches, just outside of town. With Valentine's Day ruined, I ruined another generation of creatures, and Rad's hard heart final quest is killing some necromancers. And daggone fell. I honestly should have just set up a mark there, since everyone loves having quests there. The tower is just outside of town, and encounters were pretty simple. Sneak up behind the mages, and reenact Alien. I did not realize it at first, but when the raven croaked forevermore, I pillaged through her belongings and found the Mask of Clavicus Vile. You know, a classic Daedric artifact. I honestly did not know the mask was in the game. I'm sure someone out there will happily buy this off of me for a pretty septum, preferably Martin and not Pelagius. And my time in the forts are done, and now I am in the final stretch of the questline. The primary underlying theme of the questline is that the Ordinators and the Imperial Legion really do not like each other. There was a hot war between Morrowind fanboys and Oblivion fanboys yet again, and I would need to compete in an epic rap battle to answer riddles. I would have loved to go down the violent option, but that would be rather uncouth of me. The answers were all the bottom one, and a certain fraud wanted me to off a random defector. he thought it would be cute to hide next to the shrine to Azura and not let anyone know. If you are out there, I will pounce on you like a starving lion to some easy prey. The dispute between the Ordinators and the Legion has come to a head, and to stop some slanderer, I would have to kill one of the top leaders of the Ordinators. I wish I could have done this a Fallout New Vegas style, or just firing the Ordinator, since I am the leader after all, but nope, I just taunted the Ordinator into fighting me to the death. His death, not mine. Plot armor is too strong. Seems word has gotten out about me stabbing one of my own Ordinators, but instead of blaming the leaders in charge, they just found some layman to put the blame on. The Ordinators would have preferred the firing squad method, like they tried to fire upon me, but I'm a firm believer in the very rigid legal system. Since the Ordinators are told to kill on sight, we would have to sneak out of the city. I would have loved to just kill everyone in sight. I must be a good Pepito, for the time being at least, and just swim through Vivek's toilet waters to safety. Probably the hardest part of the quest is dealing with Saprius' pathfinding. I know the AI in this game is dog shit, but holy f***ing shit, this is just frustrating. It took a solid 5 minutes trying to push this moron up a ledge and onto a boat. Eventually the pathfinding could be solved, and I am on to the final part of the questline. I climbed to the top of the fort to find Varus ready for me to do the ultimate fetch quest, broken up in 2 parts. The first is traveling through the fort to find some stolen Lord's mail. While sure I could have solved the mystery and broken into the Forbidden Wing, I would rather just go around the front of the fort and find the cave marked on my map a long while ago, surprising the furious Legionnaire and killing him for his armor. Varus tells me good obedient servant, and the second half is traversing to some random cave southwest of Sadrith Mora. I ended up getting east and west mixed up yet again, so I ended up wandering around for a long while. I am cardinally challenged, okay? Eventually I could find the cave and dominate the Daedra inside. I am starting to suspect I am a little too powerful. I like being OP. After navigating the windy cave, I offed the Sorceress and claimed Shizramir, one of the ultimate swords in most Elder Scrolls titles. I handed the quest to Varus, and for me to finish the questline to its fullest, I must beat him in a duel, with him using the 2 divine artifacts I gave him. I am starting to suspect Varus is a fraud and just wants some Gopher to make him powerful. I worked hard, and by Azura, I will take my skooma money if it's the last thing I do. Unfortunately for the Imperial, I have a spring in my step, and he has sprung to the afterlife. I take my rightfully earned goodies, and now I am the Imperial Dragon. Not that dragon, but just some super strong soldier. And with that, 4 quest lines have been completed. I managed to become the leader of the Mages Guild through violence, joined an Imperial Cult to obtain divine artifacts for myself, made pacts with evil Daedra to overthrow the Tribunal, and spread imperialism through subterfuge for more power. Quite rapidly, the seams of Vardenfell is unraveling, and I am only starting. But this video has gone on long enough, and probably for the next section, I will unravel the Great Houses, with even more violence. But that is all for today. And before we conclude, a special thank you to all the YouTube members and patrons who always manage to get their forcefully persuaded artifacts on their first try. Links to them along with my socials and Discord in the description. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to drop a like, subscribe for more masochism and any other ways to torture myself, leave them down below. This has been Orpheolus, and I'll see you all in the next one.